I am so happy to be with you. I was fortunate enough to attend the first one. I was unfortunate to miss last week, but I'm going to get the video recording. So before I begin, I just want you to take a couple of deep breaths and get yourself here. You know, often your body shows up before your heart, your spirit, and your mind. So let's kind of gather ourselves to be fully present. And as we breathe in, let us breathe in the love of God that's always present to us. And as we breathe out that same love of God to a world that is in desperate need of that love. You are most likely familiar with the Dominican instruction, Contemplare et contemplate alis tradere. It's all over your campus. It's written in stone. And you know it means to contemplate and to give to others the fruit of your contemplation. So it's not new to you. You see it everywhere. One of my professors offered another way of saying it. Now, this is one of our shared professors, Jack J. He used the term divine spillage. You fill up, then you spill over. You contemplate and you give to others the fruit of your contemplation. Divine spillage. spillage. Isn't that a great word? A great image. Indeed, the direction statement that we are exploring today, love impels us to foster lives of prayer and contemplation, is not new to us. We are prayers, and yet Paul instructs us, I must say it backwards. Paul instructs us in Thessalonians to pray always, to pray continually, and to pray without ceasing. Now, just how do you do that in our very busy lives? That instruction could lead us to feeling guilty. I don't pray enough. I fall short. I wish I had more time. And yet, when I do sit to pray, I get distracted. What about you? All of the above. That's true. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with you. That's normal. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to quietly, at first, reflect on what's your favorite time or place to pray? How do you pray? And what moves you to a deeper place, a connection with the divine? So just take a minute to let that scroll through your mind, and then you'll have an opportunity to share that with one or two people. Okay, if you just share whatever's comfortable for you with one or two people, and then you won't share it in the large group. You just share it. People get really anxious when you ask them to share that. Everybody becomes mute. One more minute. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, can we come back? Can you feel the energy? Can you ask your partner to finish? Thank you. The energy was so good. You could probably talk for the rest of the hour, but that's not what they asked me to do. Sometimes those questions, or questions such as these, give us a feeling of inadequacy. I'm not enough. What I'd like to do is shift that awareness to all that is prayer. Pray always. You are prayers, and you and I both long for more. When I was invited to give talks on prayer to parish groups, especially women's groups, they would often give me the story of Mary and Martha to use. Of course, many women blame themselves for being too much Martha and not enough Mary because they feel inadequate. Unfortunately, I think that passage has been misrepresented, as if one is better than the other. After all, don't you think Jesus wanted to eat? I believe he appreciated Mary at his feet, but I also believe he appreciated Martha in the kitchen. Both are the same coin with two sides. The ebb and flow, the rhythm of prayer, the divine spillage, the breathing in and out, the contemplation and giving to others the fruit of our contemplation. So I believe all is prayer, the stillness and the silence, and the activity and ministry, the inward and the outward. I don't believe Jesus called us to guilt as a motivator. I believe Jesus looks at the motivation of our heart and calls us to be aware, but not out of guilt, but out of desire, out of our deepest longing. God calls us to live our life with attention and intention, rather than a robotic style of moving through life, which all of us know how that feels. Now, when I was in elementary school, I learned my prayers. I learned the morning offering, the acts of faith, hope, love, the act of contrition, the rosary, a whole slew of prayers. I don't regret any of that because for me it was foundational. But at some moment, those words drifted from my head to my heart. And at times I don't have words. Somehow, spontaneously, those words spring up from my heart. Now, when I entered the convent, I learned to chant the Psalms. I studied those ancient prayers and learned the melodies that touch the soul. They connected me to a long line of prayers. They gave me a context. Now, if any of you have ever watched Call of the Midwives, you've heard them chanting. Both the prayers, the tones, and the words take us to a deeper place because at some moment, the head and the heart connect. So back to when I was giving talks to people who think they aren't enough. They don't pray enough. I would lay out many practices that is normal to you as ways of prayer. If we notice, if we pay attention with intention, opportunities for us to pray always. Contemplation. Can I sit in silence, stillness, and just be present? Do I allow focused time with God and allow God to have time with me? When Mother Teresa was asked how she prayed, what do you do when you pray? She answered, I just sit. And when they asked her, what does God do? She said, God sits with me. Contemplation. I just sit and God sits with me. What is it that gets you totally absorbed? How do I set the tone for my day? We're often getting ready for something. I know before you get here, you're getting ready, you're getting lunches made for your kids, you're getting your books in order, you're getting your papers, the graded papers ready. How do I take the healthy busyness of my life, the normalness of my life, and root it in the motivation of my heart, which is to be love, and to make that my prayer? When I was little, we said grace before meals every night, and the first line was this: let us remember we're in the holy presence of God. Now, my dad learned that in grade school from the Christian Brothers. I thought everybody said grace like that. I found out later when I got older they didn't. But I have never forgotten that, and it's become a mantra for me. Because it is the truth. We're always in God's presence, and our prayer is to notice it, to believe it, to live it. So when I get up in the morning, let us remember we're in the holy presence of God. And throughout the day, if I see something beautiful, if I see something tragic, no matter what, if I can pull that up, it creates a whole environment for my prayer. Now I get daily religious posts, and I listen to Terry or read Terry Hershey every day, and he talks about the garden is his sanctuary. I would think Sister Joanne would say the same thing, and Sister Gemma. What is your sanctuary? What is your sacred place? He talks about spiritual hydration. That's a great word. That filling up and spilling over, that divine spillage. What is the space or the place of centering yourself, your sanctuary, where you get spiritual hydration? Breathing in the Spirit of God, breathing out into the world that same Spirit, the world that desperately needs it. The second one is fasting. Now, we're very familiar with that. It's Lent, after all. But Pope Francis challenges us with his Lenten instruction of fasting and feasting. Fasting from bitterness and feasting on joy. Fasting from worry and feasting on trust. Fasting on focusing on my limits to focusing on my gifts. Fasting from what we see as our lack to feasting on our abundance. If you were to fast from what gets in the way of your joy, what would that be? Some people fast from the media, social media, to be more present to the now, to present to what really matters. We can fast from gossip to giving others the benefit of the doubt. We can fast from judgment to generosity. Parents fast from what they might want to do at the moment to take their kids to soccer or basketball or whatever the kids want to go to. That's a form of fasting. Caring for the sick or the lonesome when you'd rather stay home and read a book. That's fasting. Staying after work to help a student that's struggling. That's a form of fasting. That's a form of prayer. Is this not prayer? Liturgy. What rituals help us recognize the presence of God? Certainly the sacraments. That's a little bit more obvious. But I heard Brother David Stranarest one time talk about when he took a shower, it brought him back in memory to his baptism. I have to say that was a stretch for me. He talked about praying a peach when he ate a peach. Oh, taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Watching a sunset, listening to the rain. Taste and see the goodness of the Lord, who is ever abundant. Planting a garden and watching it grow. Birthdays, Thanksgiving, Lenten Luncheons. Don't they touch into our notion of Eucharist? Taste and see the goodness of the Lord. Is that not prayer? Service. How do I use my gifts in service to others? Obviously, your work here, your ministry here, is using your gifts in service to others. Not just your students, but to one another, your colleagues. But you also do other things like bring food to the sick, Meals on Wheels, helping a neighbor, all the corporal works of mercy. During COVID, I wondered what I could do, and what I used to be able to do, I was limited. So I started writing letters, just notes, making phone calls to people that were lonely. I even created a Zoom prayer group with people from all over the country. Jesus said, "What I have done for you, you do for others." However that works for you in your real life. And you can make it simple. Appreciation is such an amazing gift. The cashier at the grocery store. I like it when you can read their name tag. Sometimes they almost always flip over and you can't read it. And sometimes I'll ask them what their name is. To be called by name, to look at them in the face and have a good day, or just to chit-chat them up a little bit. Doesn't take you any time. You're going to be standing there anyway. During COVID, I baked cookies. And every week, not every week, but maybe once a month, I'd take them out to the Rumpke guys. You know, have a blessed day, he would say to me, have a blessed day. You know that mattered to him, whether the cookies were any good or not. Well, he may not like cookies, but the thought that somebody thought about them. And I would kept stretching my mind thinking, who needs me to reach out to them in simple ways? And I asked, what can I do? What can I do when I'm physically limited? And you're busy. So what can you do because you're so busy? What can I do when I'm sick and restricted? Is this not prayer? Prophetic speech. What do I speak out against, and what do I speak up for? How and to whom? When and how do I proclaim the gospel? Last week I was in Kentucky for another reason, and they happened to be having a protest, a silent protest. 16 sisters ranging, I was the youngest, ranging from 70 to 90, in wheelchairs and walkers, those rollators. They walked down this long drive to the edge of the drive and just held up signs. They didn't always make their own signs. Somebody else that couldn't go the length made the signs. And then they waved to the cars and they, honked the horns and stuff. They might have said, I can't do anything. But they did what they could do. how they could do it. Now, your last session's going to be on prophetic preaching, so I'm not going to go too much into that territory. But I will quote our dear Catherine of Siena. Speak the truth in a million voices. It's silence that kills. Is this not prayer? Embodiment. Where have I felt the congruence of my mind, body, and spirit? When we first started, I asked you to let your spirit and your mind catch up with your body, because often our body arrives before the rest of us. Or our mind is, oh, let's see, I've got to make that phone call when I get out of here. I've got to do this. Oh, I'm going grocery shopping. I've got to write down the list. And so your body's here, but all of you aren't. But where do you experience that congruence? We can still sit still and let our minds and bodies catch up with each other. I just this week read a story of Reverend Dr. Otis Moss. He's a pastor in Chicago. His life has been threatened because he speaks out. And so he has to have bodyguards. Now you can imagine the tension he lives with, walking out to his car, even in his own home. And one night at 3 o'clock, well, it was the early morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, he heard a noise in the house. And he got his baseball bat, Louisville Slugger, by the way, and he grabbed that and he went through the house looking for the threat. He finally discovered it was in his little girl's bedroom. He opened the door, there was no light on, and she was dancing around the room. And he was just about ready to fuss at her. And then he finally said, he got inspired, and he said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Daddy, I'm dancing in the darkness." That for him was his challenge. He's living in the darkness of threat. How can he dance? That was his hope. That was his prayer. And that eventually became his homily for the weekend. Is this not prayer? Memory. What are the painful memories you need to have healed? What are the memories you need to nourish and nurture? Memories can either be a block or an invitation to prayer. A couple of years ago, I was having a very challenging time. And I went to this event, and my body was there, but I wasn't. And this woman leaned over to me and she grabbed me by the arm and she said, "I really believe in you." I'm like, I said, "Okay." Now, she didn't know the whole backstory. She probably could tell on my face that I was stressed. But I haven't forgotten that, and she probably has. She has no memory of how significant that was. When I was little, my brother had friends, this family, and they only had boys. And so the mother loved to have me come over and bake cookies because I was a little girl. Well, every year for my birthday, she sent me a birthday card, and I could smell it coming because it had one stick of juicy fruit gum. I can't tell. Now, I was 7 years old, and I still remember it. She's probably gone to God by now, but that was so significant because she saw me, she remembered me, she cared about me, she knew what I liked, and she acted on it. That memory is a treasure for me. Is that not prayer? Justice. What am I doing to act on my beliefs? When do I walk the talk? We all have memories of the picture of Pope Francis washing the feet of prisoners on Holy Thursday. He doesn't just talk about it, he does it. We all have memories of him kissing the man with the deformity. He does it. He walks the talk. We participate in vigils, service trips, standing with and for the vulnerable. How do we walk the talk? Adoration. When do I find myself dwelling in the center of mystery, overwhelmed with awe, and recognize God in that moment? One of our sisters was giving a day of reflection for us, and I don't remember everything, but I remember this one story. She talked about walking into a store like Macy's. She went to the women's washroom, and you know how in the women's washroom they have those little things that fold down where you can put the babies on them and change their diapers? Now they have them in men's restrooms too, I understand. And she said this young mother was changing the diaper, and she said it was a mess. But she looked at the woman's face, and the woman just had adoration on her face. There was only adoration, awe, thrill. This is my beloved child. Isn't that awesome? In the middle of the mess. When do we find that? Now, walking on this campus at this season is an opportunity for awe and adoration, the creativity of God. I had to go to Grove City yesterday, and driving home, the trees were unbelievably brilliant. They were just everywhere. It just took my breath away. What does that for you? I understand some people watch their children sleep. It's an awesome moment. And if you've ever, well, I'm sure you have seen Facebook, and they may be yours too, of when a newborn, and they're cradled in their arms of their parents, their godparents, their grandparents, and the look on the face. That child has done nothing to earn it, like we think we have to earn things. Just to be is a blessing. Stargazing. You ever go out and watch the stars or see the eclipse or the wonders of the night sky? Watching a garden grow from this big to this big to this big to full bloom. When do you find yourself dwelling at the center of mystery? You know, that's how God looks at us. You might see the messy diaper. He doesn't. She doesn't. God doesn't see that. God is in awe. God dwells in the holy mystery with you. As Mother Teresa says, I just sit and God sits with me. We dwell in that mystery. Anybody know what that is? Seattle. Mount Rainier. I went to Seattle University. And when I first got there, you're assigned dorm rooms. And they said, oh, you're lucky you're on the mountainside of the dorm. I had no idea what they meant. So I said, oh, okay. So I go to my room. There is no mountain anywhere. There's a big picture window, but no mountain. I was there about 2 weeks, and somebody goes down the hall screaming, the mountain's out. That's exactly what they say. And I thought, what does that mean? So I went to the window, and in the window was that. What's that? You know, the mountain's always there. It was there before I ever went to see it, before I was born, and it will be there long after I'm gone. And when you're in Seattle, you'll get to see it occasionally because the clouds move. But most of the time it's covered up, unless you drive over to the mountain and go walking up it. And it became such a metaphor of God for me. Because God's always there, always has been, and always will be. And every once in a while you get a glimpse. And I have that picture, well, not that picture, but one like it in my house because it reminds me, let us remember we're in the holy presence of God. God's always there, And what I try to do is notice. I'll give you another one. That's Lake Michigan. Well, that's probably not Lake Michigan, but I lived in Chicago for 28 years. And I was going to my spiritual direction appointment, and I had to go down Lakeshore Drive in the morning, and you never know if it's going to be a 30-minute drive or an hour drive. So I hate being late, so I got there way too early. So I drove over to the parking lot and watched the lake, and all of a sudden the sun came up. And I started laughing because I was shocked. The sun comes up every day. But because I was looking, I saw it. I don't always look. And of course, sometimes the clouds are there. But again, that became another metaphor for me. You have to pay attention. I need to be aware. Because that's the truth. God is always there. So everything is revelatory if we see. Everything can speak to us of God if we see. Everything is prayer if we see. To pay attention gives us the opportunity to pray always, as Paul tells us, because we believe God is everywhere if we see, if we pay attention with intention. That is your desire, that is my desire, and that's God's desire. So let us remember, we are in the holy presence of God. Now, this is your opportunity to ask questions or to make comments. Yeah.
I recently came across this line on Facebook, and it gives new meaning, I think, to contemplation and the fruits of contemplation. I believe in God, and I believe God.
Wow. That's a good one to chew on.
It just caught me. I believe. Do I? Do I believe God? I believe in God. There's not a doubt in my mind. But how often do we say, I believe God?
Wow. That's good. Thank you. Yeah.
I had one of those powerful moments that you were talking about this past week. Both of my parents are having medical issues, and I was really struggling. And I went to the Dunkin' Donuts, and I live in Wheeling, and one of the Wheeling University students said, "I'll buy your coffee. Tell me what you want." I said, "You don't have to do that." She goes, No, tell them what you want." And I said, "Well, thank you." I said, "That means a lot to me. I'm having a really bad day. My parents are both having medical issues." And she goes, "I'm sorry. I hope your day gets better. Can I give you a hug?" And then she goes, "I'll pray for them." And then I thought she was going to leave. So then I'm sitting doing my computer work, and she's still waiting. I said, well, maybe she ordered more stuff. She waits till my coffee comes. She comes over to me, gives it to me, and says, "Well, you have a good day. I hope your day gets better." And left. And like you said, that probably meant nothing to her. But that was a truly God moment. Exactly what I needed at that time.
Wow, that's a great
Yeah,
story.
It was.
And you were paying attention
Yes.
enough to know. Wow. That was a different tenor than when y'all were talking. Yeah.
I think that many people, in growing up, we would say prayers, but not understand to actually pray, to learn to talk to God. And so I'm sure all of you by now are able to do that, but it is an important step. Saying prayers is good, and prayers we learned can sustain us, but just being able to address God, to share our heart, I think is a really important thing. And I like the idea that it's love that impels us to prayer, because I think that's my experience at least.
Thanks, Ellen. I don't know if it's Fred Rogers, you know, Mr. Rogers. He says something, and I'm maybe well, I got the idea, I'm not sure I have the right words. Appreciation is a sacred thing. So for that woman to appreciate you and you to reciprocate, that was a sacred moment.
Yeah, that's the key.
I still can see the Rumpke guys, you know, they're shocked that anybody would think of them. Now, I may not be the only one in the universe, but, you know, they're so grateful. It's that little. And of course, during COVID, I was kind of bored, so I kind of liked to bake. You know, but I couldn't eat it all, so it was great. It wasn't hard to do. It's just simple. Well, thank you all for coming. Oh, yeah, John.
I really like your emphasis on attention with intention, because I think we need both if we're really going to be engaged in prayer.
Thank you. Thank you. And of course, you picked that up from last summer, too.
Yes.
We were together last summer at another workshop. Well, thank you, all of you, for coming, and have a nice rest of the day, and go out and see those, oh, it may be still raining. I don't know if it's still raining. But if it is not, be sure you enjoy the beauty of this campus.
Thank you.